Welcome. You're listening to a Trauma Survivor Thrivers podcast on Mental Health News Radio Network. So much for joining us. I'm Lorilee Binstock, host of a Trauma Survivor Thrivers podcast on Mental Health News Radio Network and anywhere you get your podcasts. Today's guest is Michelle Bishop. Michelle is a master certified life coach and author of Choose You First. She helps women reclaim their lives after adversity by embracing self-love and building inner resilience. Michelle, thank you so much for joining me today.
Oh, Lorilee, thank you so much. It's an honor to be here.
Well, a master certified life coach.
Yes.
You have an incredible story that I'd love for you to share about your life-altering spiritual awakening that kind of got you on this path.
Well, really, what came to light at the end of 2019 was the death of my husband unexpectedly. And I had a life before that was just filled with woven patterns of abuse and trauma, as well as a successful career. So I was a really wonderful mask taker as well. But in our relationship, after many failed relationships prior to that, I had let down my guard for the first time and really wanted to be connected authentically and vulnerably. And it brought me to the love of my life. And unfortunately, he was on a business trip that I was not with him at, and he had drowned in the Mississippi River unexpectedly. It was a long week, and we'd been boat people. We knew how to swim. And unfortunately, I know that God has his reasons and his path. And at that time he passed, and it really took my breath away, Lorilee. I did not have any idea, because I finally, after my whole life, worked since I was 12. I was a babysitter. 16, I'm working retail. 18 and 21, I'm out in the workforce, and never gave that up. But in 2016, I contracted breast cancer, and he'd asked me to go ahead and hang my cleats and take care of myself and be with him. And so I had entrusted all of that, because we'd had years before that made me vulnerable enough to say yes. And then he was tragically drowned and left me to my knees and in my last breath. And I was like, what do I do? Who am I? I always lived in mask. And so I just felt so raw, and I really reclused in that period of grief. And I ended up contracting COVID during the pandemic in 2020, December. And I was in the ICU for 3 weeks. And during that time, nobody went into the rooms, and we were losing millions of our, fellow Americans during that time frame. But I had sold medical equipment before, as well as intubators, and part of my medical directive was to not be intubated. And so I struggled through that with a nasal cannula helping me to get through the illness. I did end up with long-term COVID with asthma, and I was on 24/7 oxygen for about a year. But I'm not now. But in that dynamic, I was in the room by myself, and I was really knocking on death's door. My SpO2 had dropped into the 50s, as well as that my breath count. And during that time, be it medication, be it whatever, but I had seen in an area that they'd had an alcove where family could sit and visit normally. And of course, there was no one. And I was barely conscious, and it was a very dim light. And there was a man just laying on this sofa type of thing, and he was throwing a ball against the wall. And in that, it was not a tennis ball, it was not a baseball, it was just like a rubber ball. And in it, it went straight to the wall and directly into his hands. And it was like a rhythm. And he would say continually, "It's just time. It's just time," like a clock.
Wow.
And upon getting through COVID, it just left an indelible mark on my soul. Like, it's just time. Well, what am I going to do with that time?
Mm-hmm.
What is the legacy that I have left truly for my two grown young women in life? And I'd had a, a lot of life that I wanted to offer lessons of hope for
Right.
others in the darkness. But I had to make sure that I was mentally, physically, emotionally, and professionally trained out of not being ignorant, because often in the United States you don't have state certifications, there aren't requirements, and I wanted to have the tools so that I could be that beacon of hope and light and shine on other people's life. So I went through the certifications to the Master Life Coach dynamic through the International Coaching Federation, because at this point, that's the only thing that we have to offer. I made a decision that I was not going to falter back into what was, that would have been an easy path to just say, I'm going to sell hardware, medical equipment, and continue just existing in life, but I
Right.
wanted to make a difference in other people's lives. And I wrote a very raw, authentic, vulnerable book about how self-love and choosing you first is so important to one's health. And it is not a selfish act, but it's a selfless act, because when
Mm-hmm.
you are whole and you are truly authentic in itself, it's freeing, and you get to receive so much more by being able to give to the people that you love, and to be in a position to love all people, no
Mm-hmm.
matter whether I've known you or not know you. I get to have the opportunity to touch your life, to actually make a difference. And that is the legacy that I have a calling for. And I continue to want to be that for others, and know that by my not just survival story, but truly a thriving story filled with hope and love for others, that we can choose that.
I love that you say like self-love is not selfish, right? I feel like that's like a lot of people feel like this self-care, self-love, um the work that you do on yourself can be selfish, but I'm very big on this whole idea that like if your bucket is empty, like you have nothing to give. So I feel like that bucket needs to be full. Um, and I feel like I'm going through that right now. This is such a appropriate conversation to have, because I just feel like I've in the last like couple of months we've dealt with a funeral, we've dealt with, going to a wedding, we dealt with like hosting, and I feel like I've been giving so much that I just have not been able to like no, I feel like I'm just like, I had like a breakdown the other day. I'm like, I don't have any more energy to give like to anybody else, but I have small kids and they need me, and it's so hard. So I was just like, wow, this is really great that I get to speak to Michelle today, because she can help me out during this whole conversation as
Oh
well.
gosh. Well,
Because
you know what? I can tell you that we are in a light community, all of us, hand in hand.
Mhm.
And I would be standing before everyone and to say, look, has anybody out there ever reached a moment that you've said, you're spent? Does
Yes.
anybody understand that? I do, you know,
I do.
right. And so in that, you think that you're giving, but truly, when you have spent yourself so much, are you really giving, or is it really selflessly important to have that moment in time for your own self care and self love to be able to say, I'm taking a step back, I'm going to take a breath, I'm going to replenish, and all that you can give to all those that you love so much and to others that you can learn to love and be part of your circle because you're doing that for yourself. And it's
Hmm.
easy. It's not even like you're making a conscious decision because you've put yourself first.
Right. Right. Yeah, I do feel like time and time again. And this is what comes from trauma, right? Like this feeling like I have to just I'm here for other people. I'm not here for myself. It's been, it's been like one of those things, like this journey that I've been on, like, I am enough and I can, I do enough, I have enough. Um, and then sometimes when things get really hard, I revert back to the I'm not enough. And then I become very unpleasant to the
Right?
people
Well,
around me.
right. Well, and it's not intentional. It
No.
it is just a pattern in with we've done to ourselves in life. And we will. It's okay to step into that and recognize it. That's the important. Say, oh, I know where I'm at here. And that's your first step. To
Hmm.
say, and so that awareness is so important. And then to take that and say, what am I going to choose differently so that I don't revert back? And it's uncomfortable sometimes.
Yeah. That's
And
where the
it
growth is, right?
yeah, well, and that's the journey. It's
Mhm.
not the destination. We all live it every single day. That's what it is. And we're going to make mistakes. I say all the time, we are perfect in our imperfections.
Mhm.
That is how
Wow.
we were made. And how wonderful is that in acceptance?
So you've come up with a very unique technique called the silent warrior technique. And I was just wondering if you could talk a little bit about that and how that helps your clients and just you in your everyday life.
Uh, Well, I can absolutely share with you. It does help in everything for my everyday life, and I hope that it helps others in their life. And truly, I have suffered in the past with anxiety, chaos, overwhelmed, the noise in your head, the noise of others. And so, in that, I've found that it's very important to hit the pause button. And no one has to realize that you're hitting the pause button except you. And in that pause button, I simply take that moment and I breathe in through my nose like we do every day in slumber and in awake time. And I say, breathe in life, because that's what we all have is the breath of life.
Mhm.
And so in breathing in this moment of life, I hold it and I really feel it in my body. Sometimes I close my eyes, sometimes I don't, depending upon the circumstances that I am. I prefer to really block out in those really crazy moments of chaos, which we all have. It could be at the grocery store and the kids are wanting candy or whatever. Who knows? And you're trying to figure out how much the meat is and which one do I want. But I just hit that pause button and I breathe in through my nose, hold it, and then exhale and say to myself, release all that doesn't serve you. And that is so very important for all of us. We're in a very tumultuous time period in our life. Our world is in chaos, it is in war, it is in death, it is in sadness, it is in illness, it's in financial wonder and uncertainty. And what is amazing is that what you will allow to bleed into yourself
Mm.
and how it will affect your everyday being. But if you are aligned and centered within your own self love, in self care, you're able to be accepting of things that you have no control over.
Right.
I'm a very spiritual person. I'm respectful of all religions and spirituality that one shall choose. And it has been also a steadfast for me because I recognize in all of my trauma, in all of my life, all the uncertainty, it is something that I've had no control over in moments. And
Mhm.
sometimes I have, and I've made the wrong choice. But if you learn from that, it's never a mistake. You then get another choice to make a small pivot of change and say, no, 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 that didn't serve me. I'm going to release that. And you begin to change your own patterns of how you are. And in that self love, in that self care, you're then so able to give to so many in your lives because you're giving to yourself first and you're accepting and you're breathing in what is so important, which is life. We
Mhm.
get it. We get this opportunity in this earthly world to be our best us.
Yeah.
My best me isn't your best me. And that makes us so perfect in our imperfections. And it's accepting that and taking those energies in and being like just really like in wonder. Like, I heard you mention about your two children and your husband and I was like, what a wonderful life that you do have because you also get to be part of so many other people's lives and what you do and sharing and wanting to be a part of making others' lives better. And I was just like, it's a lot to juggle. Yeah, it's a lot to juggle, but guess what? When things don't go exactly the way they are going the way they are supposed to go. And
Yeah.
in acceptance of that and saying, okay, let's do it this way because you yourself have mentally put yourself in that space and just use that technique of silent warrior and take that for 10 seconds. And I've had moments that I've taken longer that I just need to have that peace in my life, in my center, so that I can be my best me for everyone else that I love.
Oh, yes. I mean, that is very powerful. That is very powerful because I think about before my healing journey started, I would just sit in the chaos. I thought I had to. I thought if
Right,
I was not in a chaotic state or always in the sense of urgency that I wasn't getting anything done.
right.
And so I would just sit in that chaos. But this whole idea of pause, which, just taking a breather, I've realized when I get to slow my mind down, I'm actually more effective and efficient. And it's not, it is so when people would tell me that I would need to calm down or relax or just take my time, I'm like, no, there's too much to be done. There's too much to be done. What are you talking about? But I've realized I've just been more effective when I slow down. And so I feel like that's where the silent warrior technique really is important. That just that pause is so important. So such a little thing can be such like an incredible just tool, powerful tool. And I love how you're just saying, just telling yourself to just breathe in life and let go what doesn't serve you. Because I feel like when I'm in that urgent state, I'm just holding all kinds of nonsense that doesn't even need to be there.
Right. Well, and we become so laser focused in those moments because we're
Mhm.
like, we got to get this done, we got to get that done. And we become so laser focused that we really are missing so many pieces of what we need to be experiencing in that moment to be the most effective that we can be. It's like
Right.
our world is not black and white, it is filled with color. And how you choose to look at that is if you want to laser focus or if you want to actually open yourself up to the wondrous world of color and give that through yourself to the situation, it makes you far more effective in
Mhm.
all that you do in business and in personal and in yourself and in spirituality and in health, physically, mentally, emotionally. Think about all these things that just come off. And it's just, it is our life and how we choose to live that.
Yeah, exactly. I think that that's just so beautifully said. And we talked earlier, you briefly touched on trauma that you've experienced. And then you kind of went, you did your own work in medical devices and retail and all of this. And you kind of came back to this journey of healing. Did you, before, when you were experiencing the the traumas that you've experienced, did you go through a period of healing, or was that after all the COVID and the death of your husband? Um, when did that all kind of take shape?
It's interesting, very interesting question that you ask because I am a product of child abuse,
Mm,
and children don't get a choice. From the moment that they're born, things will begin. Their little minds are already receiving energy and information. And so, in being a product of child abuse, of mental, physical, emotional trauma, and not having that choice and living in abnormality that you think is normal.
yeah.
I mean, that's just truly, children don't know any different if that's all they've been exposed to. Fortunately enough, I did have the opportunity to have other people in my life, like my grandmother, that gave me such love, and I held on to that like such precious gems of in my heart, in so that it allowed me to be resilient. My father was such, even though I was born in the 60s, the man's responsibility was to provide for the family. They weren't, I think that that's a real evolution that's occurred
Hmm.
in my lifetime to see how active men are as fathers and nurturers in their children's life now. You know, back in the 60s, they were running and gunning and making sure food was on the table. And when he was there, but he was also at work a lot, trying to provide for his family. And, but in the small nuggets of what was given in those moments meant so much to me as a young child. And that's one of the things that I think is very important for us as adults is to recognize everything that we do in a family, outside a family, as it relates to children, has a forever imprint in their life. It really does. And so, in a situation where a child doesn't have a choice, by you choosing you first, you can recognize that in another child because you can see that something might be right, something might be not right, but if you're giving of yourself and just kindness, it could have such an unbelievable impact that you have no idea that would travel years into their adulthood. So as I did that, I followed typical patterns that I had known. I had had a uh, marriage initially as a young woman that would resulted in severe domestic abuse. I then quickly rebounded into what I thought was going to be my, perfect white picket fence scenario in my own head. Uh, but I did, and I remarried quickly after I'd mustered up enough courage to leave my abuser and divorce him. But within a couple of weeks, was trapped into another relationship that had two beautiful children. So I'm a real, uh, I'm a real believer in a purpose-driven life.
Mm.
And all through those times, I had gone through therapy, and I thought in all of that, I got that. I'm not I'm not weighted down by all of that. And truly I had not navigated through it authentically because I still kept those masks and those armors on my heart. And ultimately how weighting it can be on a person that I had reached a point after all of it, and I'd seen the light of what it is to truly be vulnerable in giving and receiving love with the love of my life, that surviving COVID and trauma, I have lost, I'm 5 foot tall.
Oh,
Man,
me too.
oh yeah, I used to be 5'1.5", Lorilee, but I've got some strength factor that happened. And but I accept it willingly. I'm 5 foot, and I had gained 215 pounds, and since then, over my life journey of my own self healing and my own education and true focus on choosing me first, I have lost over 115 pounds,
Wow.
and I might be physically half of the person that I am, but inside I am a giant because I live life fully, authentically, and without any, I get to fly like a bird. I'm like, I'm free of all of it. And I get this opportunity to really be in a place that I'm okay. Let me help you in that guide of journey. I want to be the guide for your own self discovery. And because if I hadn't gone through that, I'd been to therapists. Not that, I mean, I think that, it's important to do an evaluation. Therapist, psychologist, psychiatrist, coaches, we all have our lane, and they can all work in conjunction. They can work separately. And it's all about the timing where you are in life and what you need for your own mental health. They are all important.
Yeah.
I just chose the avenue of uh, of actually going into coaching because I want to be that lead, that guide for your own self-awareness, because I find that most effective.
Yeah. I mean, I've spoken to friends who have used coaches versus therapists, and I feel that they're not bound by so many restrictions um, like therapists are. They get to be more involved in a person's life and guide them through their life like a Sherpa, just
Yeah.
helping them out. And I think that is like such a that's really powerful because I feel like coaches, and not to knock on any therapists, I have great therapists.
Right.
Um, but I do feel like life coaches are really there to really, really guide you. Whereas some would say some therapists are just there to listen to you and like to let you vent. But I feel like the guide is especially important. And especially someone who has been through the trenches, who's been through the abuse and who's come out the other side and found authenticity. And that is absolutely a powerful thing. Um, but I do want to ask, like, finding that authenticity, were did you and writing your book, Choose You First, did you realize like, oh, I found who I am. I looked deep into myself and I realized that I had to choose me first in order to be my authentic self, and that's kind of where you went with the book?
I love when you ask me these questions, Laura. I do. I love it. And so this is where I'm at. When I say that I get to be my true authentic self, I am the person that was born onto this earth. So I have made an absolute full circle in my life to exactly where I was born.
Mm,
That loving, kind, vulnerable, true self. And that's the amazing thing about it, is that you get to see, wow, I'm no longer that scared little girl. I don't have all of these armors and plates on me. I don't have all of these masks that were created over a lifetime of what was. I get to live life as it is,
mm,
just as I am.
and not what other people told you. Like,
No,
right? Is that
or
right? I feel
right,
like
not,
that's
and what I told myself.
yeah, yes. All these learned behaviors from everyone around you of what you're supposed to be and what you're supposed to do. I feel like finding your authentic self is a lot of unlearning.
Isn't it? It's so easy. I mean, that's what's so crazy. I mean, and I mean crazy in a good way, not a chaotic way, not a chaos. It's a free, fun, hope, love. It's just, it is there. It's so easy. And I accept so many things as acceptance. You know, let's say someone approaches and I'm like, I'm okay if you have a different opinion. I welcome that because
Hmm.
I get to learn. I can only
Right.
share what I can. I get to learn every day from others. Isn't that wonderful? I mean, and I'm talking everyone. It's what I choose to do because it allows me to really view life in such a manner that I missed a lifetime doing
Yeah.
because of the trauma, because of the voices. Now, the voices never go away. The
Mm.
trauma never goes away. Understand that. Anybody that says, oh, we can make that go away, go to this 30-day program, I say, I'm not that person. I'm not your person because I see this as a true journey. And journeys have stumbles. You come off the path, you come back on the path. It is something that you do in want and desire and commitment to yourself. And so it's not the destination, it's all about the joy in the journey.
I love that. Wow. Well, Michelle, I do have to ask if there's anything that you would like to add that you believe is an important message for our listeners and our viewers.
Well, I I know the most important thing that I want to leave everyone with is that hope, kindness, and love are always there. Never give up that beacon. Always see light and hope through the journey and recognize it's only a moment. Hold your breath, breathe in life, recognize it, and go ahead and release all that doesn't serve you.
Wow. Oh. You know what? That a beautiful technique and definitely something that is extremely helpful that I know can be helpful in anyone's life. So thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate it.
No, thank you. It's been such an honor. I'm so grateful. And please have your listeners come join the journey. It's a community. It's a community, hand in hand. So best way to get in touch with me is probably the easiest, uh,
Mm-hmm.
bishoplife.com, and that'll just link you to all my social media and my book, and so you don't have to like fumble through the digital dynamics.
Awesome. Yes, I will make sure to have that in the show notes
Great.
for our listeners and viewers. So thank you so much. That was Michelle Bishop, Master Certified Life Coach and author of Choose You First. For more information on Michelle and where to purchase her book, you can check out the show notes. Her website will be there where you can get all the information you need. April's issue of Authentic Insider is out. Check out Authentic Insider at traumasurvivorthriver.com. That's traumasurvivorthriver.com. You can find past issues of Authentic Insider and past episodes of a Trauma Survivor Thrivers podcast. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the email list. You've been listening to a Trauma Survivor Thrivers podcast on Mental Health News Radio Network. I'm Lorilee Binstock. Thank you so much for being a part of the conversation. Take care.